It's all about the attitude.
I want to talk to you about something that's really important. So I did a Google search, right? And what this tells me, and is going to surely tell you, is that it's not news in the United States to say something offensive about Latinos, about, Latinos, Hispanics living in America, because it happens all the time. In fact, I just did a Google search, and I went on here and I put offensive comments about Latinos. And I hit Google and I put news to see if there's any news stories that somebody had recently said. You know what I found? Nothing. Buckus. Nothing. Not one news hit on an offensive comment about a Latino, at least not in the last, year or so. Now, do you think that's because nobody is saying anything offensive about Latinos? Or do you think it's because it's not even news anymore when somebody says something offensive about Latinos? It's the latter. Because I can take you right now in prime time to Fox News, and I would show you not one, not two, not three, not four, but 10 different comments that are offensive about Latinos. I could take you to OAN. I could take you to Newsmax. I could turn on the radio right now. Let's go for a drive. Turn on the radio. Put on some of these right-wing news talk shows and see what they say, because it's offensive. It's horribly offensive. In fact, the things they say about Latinos, if they said that about any other group in the United States, it would be news. In fact, right now, I could do a Google search on just about any other person in the United States outside of Latinos, and you'd find a news story where somebody offended somebody who is from another, perhaps, demographic. So what is that? And what is it where every day it seems to get worse and worse? I mean, this is the reason I'm doing this. I mean, look, I'm Rick Sanchez. I've spent my life doing news. I've worked at NBC. I've worked at CNN. I've worked at Fox. I've never seen it like this. And it's about everything. They will say things they used to whisper, but now it's out loud. Oh, yeah. That we are criminals. That we don't pay taxes. That we come here illegally to vote for some reason. Hundreds of thousands of us, by the way. Look, we could start with John Kelly. I mean, worked for the President of the United States. He says Latinos are not capable of assimilating.
They're also not people that would easily assimilate into the United States. They're overwhelmingly rural people. In the countries they come from, 4th, 5th, 6th grade educations are kind of the norm.
You know what's funny? He says Latinos can't assimilate. So in other words, the Italians came here and assimilated, the Germans came here and assimilated, the Irish came here and assimilated, everybody's come here to the United States and assimilated, but somehow we're not capable of assimilating. Well, guess what? There are studies to this, as there usually are. Princeton put out a study, it's called the Massey study. And what it found is that Latinos are assimilating linguistically and culturally just as fast, if not faster, than any other group that's ever come to the United States. Now, I gotta tell you something. As the CEO and host of Agua Media, the only Latino content and information network that isn't owned by the Democrats or the Republicans or anybody else for that matter. It's owned by us. I need to tell you something. And I need to say something so the Democrats can hear me and the corporations can hear me and the media can hear me and certainly the Republicans, who are probably the worst at insulting Latinos right now because it's what they use to drive their audiences and to monetize, to make money. And here it is. And it's very simple. I don't take welfare. My parents never took welfare. I don't vote in elections unless I'm legally registered to do so. This one's important. I'm not a rapist, and I'm not a criminal. I'm a U.S. citizen, and I speak English as well as anybody out there. And one more thing. I pay more than my share of taxes. Way, way more. And that's not just me. Those things that I just said represent Latinos in the United States today. That is the truth. But is this what you hear if you live in America about me or people like me? You know, us Beaners, us Oyes, us Latinos, whatever you want to call us. The names are okay. It's the accusations that really hurt. Let's see, which lie should we start with? How about this one? We're all criminals.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some I assume are good people.
You know, that line about rape is particularly interesting, especially coming from a man who's being accused of sexual offenses by 18 women, including rape? Really? You see, again, this is the kind of stuff that used to be whispered, but now they just say it out loud. Take Ann Coulter, for example.
These are not people who have a right to be here. So I don't care if there are two rapists. I don't care if there are two people coming in who are collecting welfare. Immigration is a government policy like any other, and it ought to be used to benefit the people already living here. There should not be any criminals coming in. To be bringing in people who are felons, can't we cross that off the list?
Boy, this is a woman who hates Mexicans. Just say it, Ann. Go ahead. Say, I hate Mexicans. You might as well. It's in just about everything else you say. How about taxes? If you're Latino, did you know? Then you don't pay any taxes in this country. You're the only ones who don't have to pay taxes. Everybody else does.
But they pay in taxes. They pay $24 billion
Who pays
in taxes.
Do you really believe they pay in taxes?
They pay Social Security, state, and local.
Yeah. What percentage of them? 10%?
It's $24 billion a year this economy wouldn't have if they weren't.
Do you know
here.
how few pay taxes, Aaron? Don't be naive. Do you think that an illegal immigrant getting money is going to be paying taxes? Okay, sure. Some probably do, only because the employers are insisting on it, okay? But there's very little, percentage-wise, there's very little, probably 5%, 10%. It's a very small amount pay taxes, Aaron.
And then there's this. Latinos come here to the United States, hundreds of thousands of them, for every presidential election. They're sent here by some mysterious force. And they come in huge caravans. And then they cross the border and they vote illegally. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of elections are steered by Latinos who come here just to vote. They don't come to the United States to look for a better life. They don't come to the United States because things in their country are so bad, oftentimes because of our foreign policy that made it bad. No. They're just sitting around bored somewhere in Honduras and somewhere in Chiapas, Mexico, or somewhere in Guatemala, and then suddenly they get a memo that says you have to get on a caravan now and go to the United States and vote. And then they do that because that's really what they need to do. Really? Here it is.
Well, we're watching, millions of illegal immigrants cross our borders, and many of them voting in the past election.
Now, despite the fact that most Latinos over-index in both jobs and job creation, and the fact that if you happen to be not documented, you can't even apply for any relief, except for some small programs that allow you, if you're a child of someone who came from Mexico or some other country, if you're a small child, you are allowed to get some food relief, very small amount from the government in some states, California, for example. But take away that, if you come to the United States and you're not documented, you cannot get welfare. You cannot apply for welfare. There is no welfare for you. And yet, despite that, that's a fact. We constantly hear this BS.
That if we were to cut down on the number of illegal aliens that are here in the United States, we would save billions of dollars.
You know what's interesting about all of this? When you hear those things, these are stories proliferated by Hollywood that are turned into viewer bait by the right. And by the way, get no reprieve from the left. When was the last time you heard MSNBC or CNN fight back on some of these lies? I mean, really fight back. I mean, with context, right? Where they go in and say, this was said, but let's look at the facts. No. They'd rather just accuse the Republicans or the other side, whoever that might be, of saying something bad, but they don't really look into it and break it down for you and tell you what the truth is, because they kind of don't care. Okay, so look, here's what you need to know. If you're Latino or someone else who feels left out by this system, I want to fight for you. I want to fight for you. Check me out here, or subscribe, or go to my podcast. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple, or wherever you get your podcast. By the way, we're going to do this in English, and we're going to do this in Spanish. Somebody's got to put context on this BS. Follow me. Tell your friends. We're starting something new here. And it's called Rick Sanchez News. There's also Rick Sanchez News in Espanol, by the way, so I want everybody to hear the message. It's called Fighting Back, and we need to do this. Vamos.